Hello, this is Jamie Magridge. Welcome to Jamie's Craft Table. Today I'm going to show you how I made this card. It's just kind of fun. It's very simple really, but it's just kind of fun. So let's get started. Put that right there. The materials you're going to need. We have a scrap of Whisper White. We have a 2 1/4 inch circle. Well, actually this is larger. It's almost 2 3/4. It is the second largest of the circle dies. Of Magenta Madness, I have a 4 by 5 1/4 inch piece of Whisper White, piece of black, which is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8, and my card base, which is 5 1/2 by 8 1/2, scored and folded at 4 1/4. We're going to be using Magenta Madness, terracotta tile, gorgeous grape. I'm going to be using some makeup blender brushes just because I like the way they work a little bit better than those sponges. We're also going to be using Memento Tuxedo Black for the sentiment. Okay, for the circles on the card, we're going to be using the 2 1/4 inch circle punch or the 2-inch punch, whatever size circle you want to use, doesn't really matter. And for stamps, I'm using the Ranger wreath. I'm using this little flower here. It does come with dies if you want them. There's dies that will cut that flower out, and they would look like this. However, I've found that there's a couple other options. This is one that I use the same stamp, but I punched it out with the small bloom punch instead, or you can literally just fussy cut it out. Okay. Sentiment is from So Sentimental. Wishing you so much happiness today and always. Or you could use I Can't Thank You Enough. Okay, so let's get started. First thing we're going to do is take a Post-it note, our punch. We're going to punch a circle. This one actually might be bigger. Out of the Post-it note. And that's what we're going to use to make our circles. Yeah, this is bigger, so it's probably the 2-inch. Let me grab it. If you wanted, you could do different sizes. You know, however you want to do it. There's no right or wrong. It's just creating a background. Okay, so this is the 2-inch. Again, I'll pop that out. We're actually using the negative space, not the circle itself. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, we're just going to pick a spot. We're going to put that circle down. And then we're going to take some more Post-it notes, just so we don't get lines if you go over the edge. We're just going to cover up those edges. Okay, and we're going to pick a color. So for this one, let's start with Magenta Madness. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my makeup brush. I'm going to get a little ink on there. I need to bring in a scratch paper. I'm going to rub a little bit off just so it doesn't have harsh edges. And then I'm going to softly, don't push hard, you don't tend to get as edges. We're just going to fill in this circle. You can use any sponging technique you want. You can use the sponges, you can use the finger daubers, whatever you want. Finger daubers would be a little bit more harsher. Now I'm going to go back and I want a little bit darker around the edges. So I want to make sure I get a little bit more darker. Okay, then I'm going to pick it up. And I'm going to look and say, okay, where would I like another pink circle? Let's put one here. And we're going to add another pink circle. You want it a little bit darker, add a little more pressure. Okay. I usually try to do threes, so I don't know why. It's just rules of threes. Three objects the same draws your eye around the page, and if you put it in like a triangular pattern, again, it draws your eye around the page. So let's put one up here. It's hanging off the page a little bit, that's fine. Okay. Now let's go to the, I want to do purple next, I think. So where do I want a purple one? I'm going to overlap the circles a little bit. This is the gorgeous grape. Do the same thing. I'm just going to add some circles. The more ink you put down, the darker they'll be. So you can go back and add as many layers as you want. Okay, let's add some up here. Alright, so I need one more purple one. Where do I want it? Let's do one down here, I guess. Almost went into the wrong ink. That's why I usually shut it. Okay. Now let's put an orange one here. Terracotta tile. Ugh. It's a new pad, it didn't want to slide. Oh, just stuck my finger in the purple. You might want to get a different post-it for the orange, especially if you've already done the purple, so they don't blend together and make a nasty brown. You don't want it to accidentally pick up ink from here and push it around. Down here. One more little one up here. Okay. There's our background. It's pretty cool. Okay, now let's bring in our little flower. The first thing I'm going to do is stamp 5 of them with the Magenta Madness on my scrap piece. Oops. Don't rush. You get a better impression when you go slow. That one I rushed and it kind of messed the edge. Take your time, go slow and purposeful. Get a much nicer stamped impression. Okay. For this instance, I'm going to go ahead and use my small bloom punch just because it's faster. Just going to line it up and punch it. There's a lot more white space with this punch as opposed to the die that cuts it out. This makes it a little bit more doable for if you already have this punch. I mean, I'd want the dies anyway because they've got some great wreaths in them. But for a class, if you didn't want to bring your die cutting machine, this is a good option. Alright, now we're going to take this piece and we're going to stamp flowers. I'm going to start with the Magenta Madness because I'm already into that. I'm just going to randomly stamp a few flowers. Again, take your time so you get a good impression. Some of them can go off the page. If you mess up like you did there, and you cover it up with another flower. Okay, and I'm not going to worry about this center too much because I am going to be covering it up, but I do want a little bit. Okay, now I think I want a few more over here. Now I'm going to bring in my chamois, clean it off. I'm going to do the orange ones next, or the terracotta tile. There's no right or wrong, we're just making a designer series paper basically. Okay, bring in our chamois again. Clean that off. Okay, then we're going to come in with the gorgeous grape. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to add some grape flowers. Some of these you might want to do second generation. Well, that looks pretty good. Let's leave it at that. Okay, let me clean this off one more time. Close up our inks. Okay, now let's bring in our circle and our sentiment and the Memento black ink. Look this up well. Stamp it down in the center of our circle. That's not too bad, but it's a little bit. Let's see if I can get a better impression on the other side. If not, that's alright. Make sure it's got nice and shiny. Much better. Okay. Alright, so now we can assemble our card. It's a real simple card to assemble. We're going to mount this piece that we've stamped to our black layer. I'm going to go ahead and try to use the seal. Okay, there's no right or wrong, but I think I want it this way. Okay, so I'm going to try to line up 3 edges here. Ooh, that doesn't give you any play. Well, it's there. Make sure you have it where you want it, because it's definitely very sticky. Alright, let's line this up. It's hard to see that top edge on the white paper. Alright. Now we're going to decide which side we want. That one, I guess. Snail on it, or seal on it, excuse me. Alright. Hear that down where we want it. Do we want it there? Wherever we decide we want it to go. No? We'll go ahead and put it in the same place. Okay, then we're going to bring in our 5 little flowers. 2 of them we're going to put a snail on, or probably the Tombow would work better. One here. One down here. Go ahead and cover that one right up. 3 of them we're going to add dimensionals on. I've got an extra one. This pack used up. This is the one where I think it came out of a paper pumpkin, and it was cut a little too deep. Those backs doesn't stick to them. Backs come off with the dimension. Almost done with it. Okay. Put one up here. Put 2 down here. Don't want to hide the sentiment. Okay, then I went in with some bling. And I just added a couple Of the basic rhinestones. There we go. Well, there's the card we just made together. Here's the one I did previously. Well, thank you for joining me at Jamie's Craft Table. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I hope you can find a little bit of time to play with some stamps, ink, and paper. This would be a fun one to play with all different shapes and colors for this background. I think it would just be fun. Well, have a great day. Thanks.